In this video, we will be studying about the equilibrium level of income, output, or employment. See, your output, I told you that your aggregate supply helps in the value addition, and that value addition goes to the income generation. So, I told you that your aggregate supply is equal to your income. And then if there is output in equilibrium, which means that your employment is also at its equilibrium, because if aggregate supply, in order to produce you need employees, you need workers. So the level of output and the level of employment in the economy, so this is the relationship. So if there is equilibrium level of income or output or employment asked in the question, you have to do the same manner. So this was given by Keynesian, the economist. He said there is indifference between income, output and employment. So there are two approaches to it. Number one is your AS and AD approach. Number two is your savings and investment approach. So in this video we will be doing first your aggregate supply and aggregate demand approach in order to calculate the equilibrium level of income or output or employment. Here, aggregate supply and aggregate demand approach. See, here equilibrium level of income and output is achieved or output is achieved when your aggregate supply is equal to aggregate demand. See, I told you that your aggregate supply means you are generating income, so this is equal to Y. So I've told you that your aggregate supply is equal to consumption plus saving, and your aggregate demand is equal to your private consumption plus investment expenditure, right? So with this, when your equilibrium is attained at this point, so your C plus S, you can replace this in equation 1 is equal to your C plus I. C is cancelled by C. So saving is equal to investment expenditure. Your equilibrium level is attained. So we can use two approaches to it. Your AS and AD approach, your savings and investment approach. So equilibrium level of income is achieved when withdrawals is equal to your injections. Your saving is a withdrawal, that you are not using your money in the economy in order to buy the goods and services, is equal to your injections, which means your investments. You are investing your money in order to buy goods and services of capital products, like capital goods and services which increase the flow of your stock. So these are the injections. So your equilibrium level of income is attained when your aggregate supply is equal to aggregate demand, or your S is equal to your I, or your withdrawals are equal to the injections. Assumptions we are taking in this AS and AD approach or SNI approach. Number one is here. It is a short run analysis. See, in the long run, you can take measures if there is like any difference between your income and your employment, full employment income. There is a gap. You call it as an inflationary or deflationary gap. So in the long run, a government can take measure and resolve this particular gap. But in the short run, this is not possible. So the assumption is it is a short run analysis. Second, it is a closed economy, which means your AD was equal, your AD function was equal to consumption, private consumption expenditure, your private investment expenditure, your government expenditure plus your exports minus imports. So it's a closed economy. It does not deal with the rest of the world. So this element we have eliminated now from AD. This third we have there is no government. In order to simplify, we have taken an assumption that there is no government, so this expenditure we have also eliminated from AD. So now in this case, according to our assumptions, we have AD is equal to consumption expenditure plus investment expenditure only, as these two we have eliminated by taking the assumption in the law. The fourth we have is your aggregate supply is perfectly elastic. Which means that if there is any change in the aggregate demand, the aggregate supply will adjust itself accordingly. So if your demand have increased in the market, which means your supply is less, so your aggregate supply, what producers will do, they will start producing more and they will increase the supply. So again your aggregate supply has adjusted itself according to the aggregate demand. So these are the assumptions that we will take while analyzing the equilibrium of income or output when aggregate supply is equal to aggregate demand. We know that your aggregate demand is equal to your consumption expenditure plus your investment expenditure. And we know that your aggregate supply is equal to C plus S, where consumption plus savings is equal to your income, right? So, in aggregate demand, what were the things we used to take on the graph? That was your autonomous investment, that is I, that is induced. That induced investment was which fluctuates due to the income, but autonomous investment was your fixed investment that you used to take. Here will take your income or output, here will take your consumption, your investment, right? Now if we consider your consumption function, then your consumption was at when your income was zero, there was some consumption that you used to do, right? So this is your consumption function. C, and your income, that your aggregate supply is perfectly elastic, that is it goes on increasing when your aggregate demand increases. So this is your income. We have seen that your income is equal to AS. This is your AS, this is your consumption. Now, your aggregate demand is your consumption plus your autonomous investment. Somewhere it will be parallel just because your investment is similar. So, this is your aggregate demand we have taken out. aggregate demand is equal to C plus I. So this is a and now when aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply, this is a level of equilibrium level. When your income, that is aggregate supply, is equal to your aggregate demand. If your aggregate demand is 80, your income should also be 80. So this is how you find out the equilibrium level of income using AS and AD approach. Now let's see it through a tabular representation. In this graph, tabular form, we are given the level of employment, your aggregate supply, your aggregate demand. I've told you in the very first beginning of this video that your income, your output or your employment are considered same because your output helps in the income generation, that is why, and your income generation means your employment. If the person is employed, then only he will generate income. So employment level of employment means your income. So see, where these four are equal, your aggregate supply is equal to aggregate demand is equal to your income. So this is the level of equilibrium. This is the level of where aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply, that is the equilibrium level of income. So this is the equilibrium income we have find out using a tabular form. Now what happens if aggregate supply is less than aggregate demand? We took an assumption in very first that your aggregate supply is perfectly elastic, that it adjusts itself according to the aggregate demand. Now if aggregate supply is less than aggregate demand, which means the demand of goods and services is high in the market and there is less supply. So what a producer will do, producer will plan more production and accordingly will start supplying more, which helps in increasing the aggregate supply, and again an equilibrium will be restored when your aggregate supply is equal to the aggregate demand. Now what will happen if your aggregate supply is more than aggregate demand? See, if your supply is greater than your demand, which means that the producer will hold the stock, right? Demand is not there, so what producer will do? Producer will hold the stock and it will reduce the supply in the market. So ultimately aggregate supply will come down and aggregate supply will be equal to aggregate demand again, and equilibrium will be restored in the economy. I hope you have completely understood that how to calculate the equilibrium level of income using AS and AD approach. Do download our Scholars Learning app and enjoy the learning experience with us.